Good morning to one and all. We would now be commencing the inaugural session, Scaling Up to Stay Relevant, How Business Schools Can Differentiate Themselves in a Dynamic Environment. May we now request Dr. Nandini R., Chairperson of the CII Southern Region Education Subcommittee, to kindly come on to the podium to give the welcome remarks.
A very good morning to all of you. I am happy to extend a warm welcome to all of you present here today, and thank you for taking time off to be at this conclave. This conclave is in its second edition and is discussing one of the important themes for the relevance of management education in our country. My predecessors at CII Education Subcommittee Southern Region, especially Mr. C.R. Swaminathan, past chairman of CII Southern Region, took cognizance of the fact that we need to pursue and reimagine the education needs and scope to support the growth of India. Mr. Swaminathan initiated the first edition of the conclave, which was extremely successful, and today we are here at this second edition. I thank Mr. Swaminathan and the members of the Education Subcommittee in CII who have supported me in developing the scope of this conclave. We are aware that management education has proliferated with the growth in industrial setup. The 1990s and 2000s saw a boom in management education, and today India has around 5,000 B schools. I'm just taking a few minutes in outlining the top challenges of management education. Though these are all well known to us, I would like to highlight some of them. The current curriculum in management education does not teach students in facing the challenges in the business environment. How to manage uncertainty and complexity are not taught in business schools. It merely teaches the concepts with case studies. It does not focus on the challenges arising out of rapid growing technology and the challenges involved in running an enterprise. Unfortunately, the best talent is going to industry where salaries are more lucrative. Those who come to academic area are the ones who could not be absorbed in the industry, or those who come to this profession by chance, and of course there are those who choose this career out of passion. We have been discussing challenges and drawbacks for very long now. As India is progressing well in the economic scenario, the education framework needs to be reimagined, and we as the few key stakeholders from academia and industry must work together towards creating a vision for 2025. So the focus of today's conclave will be to create a framework towards overcoming these challenges. Some of them being re-engineering of management education to stay relevant in today's business context, provide decent salaries and professional ambience to faculty. We need to allow our faculty to regularly go for training programs to update their skills, develop the right mindset and attitude, and focus on quality rather than on quantity. Teaching sessions must be made extremely interactive for the students so that they are more interested, better interested, and have a better learning. Provide industrial practices exposure to students through interface so that they understand the practical problems in a corporate world. The project work that students undertake should be contextual, relevant, and should focus on current scenarios, that is real time. MBA is a professional degree, and it should train and groom the students to be true professionals to take on the challenges being faced in the business environment. Finally, we need to use online courses and other e-learning methods in our curriculum. So the one loud and clear message that is emerging is that it is imperative for B schools in India to differentiate themselves in order to scale up and stay relevant. Scale up not in terms, as I said earlier, in terms of quantity, but by means of quality of output. So we have given 5 fundamental strategies for today. scaling up the faculty pool, scaling up with technology, scaling up with contemporary research, scaling up the innovation quotient, and scaling up globally. I do not wish to delve into the details now because as you'll be hearing very eminent leaders from both industry and academia speak and share their perspectives on these 5 themes. I would like to take the opportunity now to thank all the speakers who have accepted our invitation to join and address in the forthcoming sessions. And I would also specially thank our knowledge partner KPMG for helping us organize this conclave. Thank the members of the press for being here. And having shared my thoughts on this theme, I would now like to extend a very warm welcome to the speakers in the inaugural session. We have carefully chosen to invite dignitaries from industry, academia, and international partners to join us and share their wisdom on the theme today and on this very stage. I am introducing the speakers very briefly here. We have shared the speaker's profile for the reference of the participant. It is in the docket given. So our first speaker is from the industry, Mr. R. Chandrasekharan. Mr. Chandrasekharan is the Executive Vice Chairman of Cognizant India. As one of the professional co-founders of Cognizant in 1994 and an executive officer of the company, he has played a variety of roles in shaping the company's vision, strategy, and goals, and thus also meticulously executing them. In his current role, Mr. Chandrasekharan is responsible for leading the charter to drive higher levels of client intimacy, strengthening Cognizant's strong relationships with industry bodies, including CII, in driving outreach with government and quasi-government bodies, and enhancing the company's brand and thought leadership in India. He oversees a cross-section of Cognizant's strategic client engagements and mentors the team on strategy, transformation, and delivery excellence initiatives. Prior to Cognizant, Chandrasekhar was with Tata Consultancy Services, where he played a variety of leadership roles globally. He obtained his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from NIT Trichy and his MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. He was the recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award from NIT Trichy in 2008. Over to you, Mr. Chandrasekhar.
Thank you, Nandini, for that warm introduction. Dignitaries on the dais, my very close friends, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here this morning to talk about the relevance and importance of MBA education for the good of the country. And I'm very happy to see the level of participation. You know, we have people from industry, we have faculty members, we have students, so can't ask for a better audience to share my perspectives on what needs to be done as far as the MBA education is concerned. Education, in my opinion, like business, you know, we talk day in and day out in our own enterprise, in our own industry circles, that needs to change, needs to stay in tune with what is happening globally and remain relevant. That's for the business, and education is no different. Education also needs to constantly keep undergoing changes to remain relevant, because education is all about future. What we do in colleges today is going to come in very, very handy as we create the future for ourselves, for the companies that we are going to be associated with, as well as for the country. So education is all about future. And if we don't keep changing what is needed for the future, then we are going to be very irrelevant within no time. I remember addressing a similar CII event almost 6 to 7 years ago. Madhu may recall, you know, we had a workshop on higher education, really developing a working paper to recommend to the government on what are the changes that are needed in higher education, but that was more focused on technology. Right? I remember mentioning in that speech that at that point in time, everybody was going after computer science, but there was also a new discipline that was emerging, which all of us in the industry felt that it's time that academia takes up that challenge and produce data scientists. So create data science as a discipline. And today, we all know the demand for data scientists. If there is one short commodity in the marketplace, it is actually the data scientists. So if we had invested earlier, we would be reaping those benefits a lot more than what we are doing today. The reason for me to mention that is academic world should really think of 5 years, 10 years from now, what is going to be relevant, and create those skills, those expertise today in our youth that are going to be associated with our education institutions. That is the critical role education institutions play, and it is important that we have forums like this where we can discuss, deliberate, debate, and come to some conclusion on what is really needed for the future and make those changes accordingly. I'm very happy that I am myself, graduated from IIM. That was almost 31 years ago. And I'm very happy that I have an MBA degree because when I took up a job, it was very relevant. And I was able to grow with the various organizations that I was associated with. It remained relevant. But increasingly in the last 5-6 years, I myself feel very insecure, in the sense that I feel I don't know many things that are happening. Sometimes I even wish I could start all over again, though I'm almost reaching the retirement age. But that's how fast things are changing. What we learned yesterday may not be relevant tomorrow. When I talk about my career span of 30 years, I was able to manage with my education what I learned in the school and subsequently in various jobs that I was holding. I was able to learn and grow. But today, that career span of 30 years and what you can do with some skills that you could do in 30 years, you may not be able to remain relevant. Because in those 30 years, a lot of things would have changed. So what I learned as a supply chain management or ERP principles may have remained relevant for 30 years, may remain relevant today, but then things have moved on. You have moved beyond the ERP. You are really talking about insights, systems of engagements and things like that. While those fundamental principles are important, but how do you build on top of that is very, very contextual and relevant today. So you need both the core competencies, fundamental principles, but that's only part of it. But you need to do a lot more in terms of education and equipping yourself to be ready for the future. That's what MBA education should be focused on, to really equip the youth of the country to take on challenges of the future. One of the important questions that we all used to ask in earlier days, even in business schools, was how things need to be done. That has to undergo fundamental change now. Today, the question that we all need to ask is, why should we do certain things in the way we do? So it's not a question of how, it is a question of why. Why were we doing it that way? Why can't it be different? So you always ask the question, why? And the MBA education also should move away from the how syndrome to the why syndrome. If we do that, then we are really thinking about the future and then equipping ourselves to be ready to face the challenges that we may encounter. And the reasons why I feel MBA education needs to change are mainly because of the challenges that we are facing ourselves day in and day out. Now, coming from the technology industry, a lot of examples or the flavor of my speech may be technology industry oriented, but trust me, it is applicable to any industry that you're going to be working for. So what are the changes that we are seeing in the marketplace? 3 important changes. The business models are changing. The competition is not the traditional competition. You are really seeing competition from unknown sectors, unknown quarters. You would never expect that you would face a competition from certain of the startups that are going to be coming. So competition from unknown quarters. And also the need for agility. With so much change that's happening, how do professionals equip themselves to be nimble, agile, to adapt themselves to the changing scenario. Those three qualities are very, very important for emerging business leaders. Again, I talk about MBA, I'm beginning to lose the word managers. I think that's a thing of the past. We should really talk about new generation leaders, next gen leaders. That's what MBA education should be focused on, creating those next gen leaders. And I talked about these three important factors that are changing around us. First, let's talk about the business model. Increasingly, we are seeing consumerization of everything. If you're working for a large enterprise, the enterprise to employee communication is all through social media, intranets, and things like that, right? So we are even talking about gamification of engaging the employees better with the enterprise. So E to E communication is different. That business model is changing. We all know about business to business, inter-enterprise collaboration and cooperation, supply chain, logistics, zero inventory concepts. All those things we have learned, and we have seen the B2B have evolved, and I would say has even matured over a period of time. And we also know how B2C is taking the market by storm, whether it is the online retailing, online banking, or mobile. With the penetration of mobile, even people in remote areas have started doing commerce over the web, over mobile phones. So again, that business model has changed significantly. Now, in the last couple of years, we have seen the marketplace model. We call that as B2B2C. Right? You don't produce any product, you don't really distribute them, you just distribute them. You don't even market them. So you create a platform where various product manufacturers can come and offer their products, and consumers who are in need of the products can also come to the platform, and commerce takes place. So you become an intermediary or a platform owner. So that's a new business model that has emerged. So all these things, why I'm saying this, things have changed so much, but have we understood these business models during our education? No. I'm not saying everything can be taught in a business school, but these changing business models need to be made aware of to the students, so that when they come out of those education institutions, they know what to look for. They know what are the changes that could potentially happen and prepare themselves. You cannot teach everything in a business schools, but the important thing the business schools can contribute is to really equip the students with enough information so that they can pick up the thread and move on from there. So creating the awareness in these changing business models is very, very important. And also, another thing that is increasingly happening is from a ownership. You produce a product for somebody who would own it. So your marketing campaign, anything that you want to address to your end consumer is all about products and what they can do with those products. But today, the youth is talking about shared economy. I don't want to own anything. If I own anything, during the idle period, I would rather give it to somebody else for it to be used. So we are moving to a shared economy concept. It has its own implications for the business. It has its own implication, the strategy for the company. It has implications for the products that you're going to be coming out with. So we need to understand the changing scenario, the changing customer psyche, for us to be successful in the new world economy, new economy that we are going to be facing. And the second thing that is increasingly happening around us is the competition from unknown quarters. 2 or 3 years ago, nobody would have thought that the largest taxi company in the world would be Uber. They don't even own a single car. The largest accommodation provider is actually Airbnb. They are much larger than the Hilton hotels or the Marriott hotels or whatever hotel chains that we are familiar for. So the established leaders like Hilton or many of the fleet owners, they never expected a competition from companies like Uber or Airbnb. So that says something that as next-gen leader, as emerging leaders of a larger enterprise even, we need to be prepared to face competition from unknown sources. If you're preparing yourselves to fight with similar players, whether larger or smaller, you may be caught completely off guard. So the sensitivity, the awareness of what is happening out there is very, very important for the new generation leaders who are going to be leading the enterprises. And MBA education need to be helpful to make them aware of what are the new things that could potentially happen. And the last skill that the new generation leaders need to have is the agility, right? When I graduated, I joined TCS immediately after MBA. It was not very big as it is now, but it was still a large organization. And the MBA education I received at that point in time was very good to equip me to navigate a larger organization and move up the organizational pyramid. But today, I don't think we will have another TCS or Cognizant. It may happen, but it's going to be very rare and few. It is all about small enterprise, nimble, niche. These are the types of companies that are making a mark for themselves. Even larger organizations, take for Cognizant also as an example, though we may be a large organization, we have split the whole organization into business units, client-specific business units, and each one is actually managed by its own CEO and COO. So we are creating actually smaller units so that we can remain nimble as an organization. So the MBA education that we talk about, whether it is performance management, organizational behavior, the types of things, and I was talking to one of my friends who's sort of taken on to teaching after working in the industry for 30 years. I was chatting with him last night, and he was saying that the curriculum has not changed. You still talk about performance management as part of your HR1 program. You talk about industry relations as part of your HR2. Then you still have organizational behavior. The way you import education from maybe Blackboard to transparencies, it has gone to PowerPoint presentation, but the content still remains the same. So what was taught to be part of a larger organization is not relevant to be nimble and successful in creating a niche product for ourselves in a fast-changing world. So the agility is important. How do you really be successful managing a smaller enterprise? That should be the focus of MBA education. And also, in the past, it was all about, just let me know if I'm exceeding time, but I'll just finish in another 5 minutes. Yeah. And in the past, it's all about incremental thinking. When you set your business goals year after year, arrive at the business plan, you talk about a 10% growth, 20% growth, 30% growth. But today, if you really look at the successful organizations, they are all talking about exponential growth. So incremental mindset to exponential mindset. So Airbnb, when they set their goals, they're not talking about adding another 10 properties. They're really talking about adding another 1 million rooms available for people. So that's the type of thinking that we need to happen, incremental thinking to exponential thinking. So for all these changes, for leaders to be effective in this changing scenario, whether it is business model or competition scenario or agility that one needs, there are certain things that the MBA education also need to undergo. The first and foremost, I view this as very important. Now, in the past, MBA education was focused on some core management skills, whether it is the finance, marketing, or enterprise resource planning, manufacturing, those types of things, right? But those are very helpful. I still feel that the primary competency that the MBA schools need to focus on is actually the domain, the field of specialization. But that alone is not going to be sufficient. So for any new professional to be successful in this emerging world, there are 3 important skills one need to have. And MBA education need to provide them with those 3 skills. One is the domain. And second, technology is changing the world, changing the way we work, changing the way we interact. So I don't think MBA schools can produce deep technologists, but it is important that MBA schools to make the students aware of the importance of technology and what technology can bring, so that the awareness of technology and its implications to the business, that needs to be taught to the students. The students need to be aware of the importance of technology, so that when they come out and they take on business challenges, they think about technology to solve those problems. It's not enough if you just have the domain skills. And again, in the last, I would say, couple of years, we are increasingly feeling the need for design thinking or human factor engineering. It is not about great domain expertise, it is not about deep technology skills, but if you don't create products that are going to be appealing to the end consumer, you're going to be a failure in the business. So you need to have a good mix of domain, technology, and human factor engineering. You know, we are now increasingly looking for people from humanities, social sciences, anthropology. You know, Cognizant, I remember in 97, 98, we went to the business schools for campus recruitment. Nobody had done that before. We were able to seamlessly integrate the MBA students into the associate pool because we have a deep technology knowledge. They were able to bring the business flavor, and together we were able to create a unique value proposition for clients. But increasingly, we feel that's not sufficient. So we need to bring the user interface experts to make the products, services, and solutions a lot more appealing. So the design thinking is going to be a very important skill for next-gen leaders. Again, I don't think we want MBA education to specialize in humanities and social sciences, but it is important to create a conceptual understanding of what those disciplines can bring and how they can shape the professionals coming out of the business schools. So those three dimensions are very, very important for next generation leaders. And last but not the least, lost the thread here. And the second important skill is all about quantitative skills. And I talked about data science. It is increasingly very, very relevant today. Now, we have moved away from the traditional ERP systems, which we call a system of records, and then get people to benefit from those ERP systems by making them more and more usable. So people who want them to be engaged and derive a lot of benefits of those systems of records. We call that as systems of engagement. But today we are really moving towards systems of insights. The data that we are generating within an enterprise is almost going to increase 50 times. We are talking about petabytes and zettabytes to measure data. But data is the biggest asset that the enterprise can have. How do we derive knowledge from the data? So I think the important skill that one needs to have is all about quantitative skills, developing algorithms, analytics, to derive the business knowledge so that you can strategize your own business accordingly so that you'll be successful. Amazon, I believe, has been very, very successful with the data that they have about their consumers. They are doing predictive analytics. And now, based on the buying patterns or consumer patterns, they are even, without you ordering, they are sending you what you need to your home. And they have done the analysis that the probability of you taking those and accepting that supply is about 80%. To that extent, they are able to predict. So predictive analytics and quantitative skills is the second important skill that one needs to have. And the last thing which I feel is very important is the entrepreneurship. You know, it is very sad that when I was at visiting one of the IIMs, I was talking to the students, and many of the students were actually, you know, wanting to join large organizations, whether it is financial services firms, consulting firms, where they get fat salary. Not a single student was actually interested in starting on their own. But actually, it's very reverse in the engineering colleges. If you go and talk to the engineering colleges, some of the toppers, they really want to take risk and do something on their own. But if I, you know, just think about the future in another 10, 15 years, unless you have an entrepreneurial mindset and create a niche product or service offering, you're not going to be successful in the long run. So how do we really create entrepreneurs out of business schools is an important debate that we need to have and make sure that we bring out students who are hungry, passionate, as well as knowledgeable and equipped to venture on their own and take risks. So last but not the least, so the most important thing that we all need to do is take the laundry list of courses that we are teaching today and keep what is important from a fundamental principle so that we understand the basics, but remove all the frills and really focus on some of the new skills that I just talked about, whether it is quantitative techniques, humanities, introduce those types of courses. So that way the MBA students coming out of the college will remain for the future, will remain relevant for the future. And I also mentioned earlier that all things cannot be taught over a period of 2 years. That's the duration that students go through to get the MBA degree. But we may want to think whether some of these core courses can be moved to an undergraduate level. So we need to really think about education as a whole life cycle. It's not about undergraduate separate, postgraduate separate. Talked about financial accounting. If a BCom graduate is already done financial accounting, why should he do when he does the same thing when he or she joins an MBA program? So can we get into some kind of a credit system? So if you have done a course in the undergraduate program, you don't have to do the same thing, but move on to something else. So we need to really look at education as an integrated scheme, both undergraduate as well as postgraduate program, and ensure that the end product coming out of the postgraduate business school is very, very relevant for the future of the business. So, thank you very much. I know I rambled a lot, but I hope it was useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekharan. Those ramblings were very valuable and good points, good takeaways from your speech. Now it is my privilege to welcome and introduce Dr. G. Vishwanathan, who is the Founder-Chancellor of VIT University, India, who was born on June 14, 1940 in a remote village in the South Indian state of Tamil Nadu. Dr. GV's journey has been influenced by a number of people who came across him at every stage of his life. He established Vellore Engineering College in 1984 at Vellore, Tamil Nadu. He envisaged that his institution would offer world-class education to students who would be influencing the industry in future. This engineering college that started with an intake of just 180 students in the year 1984 has grown as a university, having over 33,000 students in both campuses at Vellore and Chennai, and with more students to be added from the upcoming campus at Madhya Pradesh. VIT University is a thriving multicultural institution with students from all the states of India and from 50 countries. The institution offers graduate, postgraduate, and research degrees in engineering, management studies, science, and humanities. VIT is the first Indian university to get the coveted Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology, ABIT, USA. VIT is the leader among private universities in the Scopus indexed publications, which reinforces the quality of research being conducted. Sir, may I invite you to speak?
Good morning, Dr. Nandini Rangasamy, the chairperson, Mr. Chandrasekharan, Mr. Vinod Mirchandani, other distinguished speakers, professors, members from the industry, student friends. I would like to thank at the outset CII for arranging this education conclave, especially on management education. Well, I was managing without studying management. I was managing college as well as university. And my studies were economics, history, political science, and law. I never studied management but I thought everybody is studying management, I also wanted to study. Now, 40 years after leaving the college, I joined Harvard. There is a program called Advanced Management Program for about 3 months. It was a wonderful experience. I don't know whether all of us can run schools or universities like that. For the short period, they charged $50,000, 13 years ago. I don't know now how much do they charge. We are facing problems in higher education. Of course, management is a part of higher education. And what is it that can do? Because I find there are two extremes in management schools. We have more than 4,000 schools, standalone schools, PGDM institutions, colleges which run MBA program, universities, private, state, and deemed universities running programs, etc. And among the fees, on the one side, there are institutions which charge 10 to 15 lakhs or even more than that. I'm not sure. The recent fees charged by IIM, EAB, etc. And there are those colleges which are fighting for survival in the business schools because the state government fixed the fees. I think this year they have fixed 30,000 rupees per semester. So it means the colleges can collect only 1,20,000 for the entire MBA program. We are talking about scaling up, enhancing competition, competing with the world level schools. How are we going to do this? The state governments or the regulatory bodies, whether it is center or state, we have umpteen authorities which control the higher education institutions, including the business schools. And I'm happy that the industry is taking some interest in this. I find in the developed countries, particularly US is a model for the developing the higher education. There the universities exist mainly because of the support from industry, from governments, from alumni, and the fees paid by the students. How are we running our institutions? We solely depend upon the fees paid by the students. The business school is a big model. And if it is more than 1 lakh, it's very difficult for even middle class to come and study. The students do not get any financial support from the state government or the central government. I would very much like CII to study this. If we are going to scale up and ask them to compare themselves with the top universities of the world, how are we going to survive and who will pay the fees? The parents, many of them, they cannot afford to. Even if they get a seat in IIM, many parents cannot enter, cannot send their children to the IIMs because it costs more than 10, 12 lakhs. So there should be a model to finance the students, good students, or good schools. And I would request CII to create a cell for this so that at least in the future, we will be able to have good interaction with academic institutions. In fact, my first priority will be the partnership between industry and academic institutions. where the students can learn many things, because as Mr. Chandrasekharan pointed out, the management cannot be learned in 1 or 2 years. It's a lifelong process, and many things we can learn from industries. Of course, in VIT we are trying to do it, have formal agreement with industries, sending our students and professors to industry to learn something. Probably Germany is a model where if you want to be a professor, you should have worked at least 5 years in industry. Only then they will be promoted as, designated as professors. We have not thought about it here. And it is time now that we want our higher education to be on par with the world level. The industry and academia should come close to each other. First, to teach the children, because there are a number of senior people in industry who can go and teach in the colleges and the universities. They can share their experiences, and it will go a long way in enhancing the quality of education and even among the competition, because I find it's a cutthroat competition among business schools, and some of them are unable to run. Like some of the business schools are closed in recent times because we have too many business schools, or there are business schools where students are unable to enter because the fees is high. So my priority is corporate partnership with academic institutions, particularly business school, those who run business, and engineering. These are the two areas where we must have very close interaction between industry and academic institutions. So the student will have the advantage of learning our own problems and how to solve them. Another important thing is we must have interaction outside the country, because we have to prepare our students for the world market. All of them cannot be accommodated in our own country. Even though our GR is only about 20 to 23%, even then we find it difficult to accommodate all of them in our business, industry, and our companies. And they should look for job opportunity outside the country. It means that we must have good partners in developed countries so that they will get an exposure of the other cultures, other behavior, how they do their business, how they run their industry, how to interact with the employees, etc., which will go a long way, but it will increase the cost of education. We have some program. We send them first year, they study here, second year, they go to US. But it costs more. In fact, we have introduced another scheme by which they can study 2 years here and 2 years there for engineering, and for business 1+1. They can go to US, UK, Australia, Germany, etc. But the cost goes up, and how are we going to finance these students if they belong to the lower middle class or poor class? I always think about the poor class and the middle class, because still they are all outside the higher education system. Out of 14 crores of children who are in the eligible age for higher education, all the institutions in the country, colleges, about 40,000 colleges and about 800 universities, we are able to accommodate only 3 crores. So all of them are standing outside, waiting outside. And we are worried only about this 3 crores. No doubt, it is also necessary, because the quality has to go up so that they will find an employment. And also it will be useful to the economy and the society. And I would very much like the alumni to be involved. That's what the US universities do. Of course, they are a model in many things. As I told you, they exist mainly because of the financial help they get from the industries, governments, and alumni. I don't know how many institutions insist on meeting their alumni, getting them at least once in a year. And if they are employed in a number of institutions, they can come and share their experiences with their juniors. That we do regularly. And again, as I told you, they must have some extra skills, extra languages, which will be possible. In VIT, we teach 7 foreign languages. Any one is compulsory, but more than one they can go for. German, French, Spanish, Chinese, Russian, Arabic. These are all the languages we offer. Chinese, of course, Chinese, we have a permanent department there. Because it gives them an extra advantage when they go out, because Spanish is spoken in a number of countries. French is spoken in dozens of countries. This will give them some advantage to them. And with our alumni on record, if they are going to have regular interaction with the institutions, colleges, and universities, it will be very useful for the current students. And the professors, we have the disadvantage of having shortage of having qualified professors. When I spent that 3 months in Harvard, I found they get all the best people from all over US. In fact, once Peter Drucker was invited to give a lecture to us and to have interaction with us. Probably we must have such designated professors in India, national level professors who can go around the country, offer lectures at various cities so that the students will have interaction with them. And also we should get good professors from outside the country also. There, I want the government and the CII to take the initiative. I don't know whether government will take the initiative, because so far as government has never taken a positive initiative in this. All the PGDM institutions are in the Supreme Court fighting for a case. Almost all the universities are in high courts or Supreme Court, because we have too many regulations. It's over-regulated, under-governed. That's how we can describe the education here in the country. And they never have interaction. So far, the last time we had interaction with the government was in 2006, when Arjun Singh was the minister. He called the universities to find out their problems and suggest some solutions. He really did it. In the last 10 years, we are meeting the government only in law courts. Our lawyers and their lawyers meet. That's how educational institutions are being run in the country. They will regulate fees, they will appoint somebody, he will come and fix the fees. They know that with these fees, the schools, colleges, or universities cannot run. So they will go for black money, and they are prepared to take a share of it. That's how this country is going. We want total transparency in education. Is it possible, at least under Modi's government, because he believes in eradication of black money? We should become transparent. And we should have regular interaction. The state government, central government, or the regulatory bodies. They should have at least once in a year, they should call them and have interaction with the students, parents, the managements, so that all the court cases, there are thousands of court cases in the country on various business schools, colleges, universities, etc. This can be avoided, because we should concentrate on quality, and quality should be assured by state government, central government, industry, academia put together. And also, financially, we must make some arrangements for the students to get scholarship as well as loan. It is done in many countries, which is not being done as a nation in our country. It is time now that we must be able to compete with others, help our institutions so that they can think of competing with the advanced countries, and probably we can have some interaction if there is time left out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. As usual, you provided a great many insights into how the education system in India should perform. We at CII will certainly take up many of the issues that you have mentioned here, and we hope we can throw some light onto all these issues. So we have our final speaker. He is here to represent Professor Amitabh Mattu, whom we had invited to speak. I will just give a brief introduction about Professor Amitabh Mattu. He is the Professor of Disarmament Studies at the Center for International Politics, Organization and Disarmament at New Delhi's JNU. He is also Honorary Director of Australia-India Institute at Delhi and Honorary Professor in the Faculty of Arts, University of Melbourne. Professor Mattu is currently the advisor to the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir with the status of a cabinet minister. On his behalf, as he could not make it for this program, he has very kindly requested Mr. Vinod Mirchandani. He is the Deputy Director at Australia-India Institute at Delhi. He is responsible for managing this institute and has been responsible for the University of Melbourne's engagement in India since its inception in April 2007. His role involves student recruitment, industry collaborations, student services, academic and research partnerships, and also this institute focuses on developing and engaging bilateral relationships between the two countries, that is Australia and India. Mr. Vinod has a master's from the University of Buckingham and has completed the first year of his PhD in marketing at the University of Melbourne. He previously worked at the Australia-India Institute in Melbourne. So here we have Mr. Vinod, who will speak on behalf of Professor Mattu. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, members of the academic community, leaders in industry, and students and friends from the media. Good morning, and thank you very much for having me here and giving me the opportunity to speak at this very successful, what I would say, beginning of a healthy discussion and conclave. I have big shoes to fill as I stand here before you to deliver the speech on behalf of Amitabh Mattu, who can't be here due to unavoidable circumstances and sends his deep apology. Speaking after two speakers with such rich knowledge in industry and academia really gives me a great opportunity to talk a little bit about what I bring about as international perspectives from not only being an international student, but also working in an international education environment in Australia and more recently in India. One of the key findings of the Reuters 100, the most innovative universities in the world, is that in the fast-changing world, if you're not innovating, you're falling behind. Reuters 2016 university rankings results show that big breakthroughs, even though one highly influential paper or one patent can drive a university way up to the list. A lot of what universities are striving to be a part of that global ranking, the global research community. But when discoveries fade into the past, so do its rankings. So what is it that's left for us to do? Is consistency. Consistency in being the true innovative institute that keeps delivering groundbreaking work year on year. So my theme really today talks about two areas about scaling up, is around innovation and entrepreneurship. Throughout history, innovation has been a hallmark of respective success, whether it's individuals, organizations, or even countries. Innovation is a key strategy for institutions not only to recover, but thrive and sustain growth into the future. In the current times, the need of the hour, what business schools need to do is how do we foster more innovation? We echoed from Mr. Chandrasekhar's speech, as well as our earlier speaker, that innovation is really what is required. Business schools are vital societal institutions that create value in a myriad of ways. The perception that business schools exist to serve profit, seeking businesses, or salary-minded students, in my opinion, is incorrect. Business schools play a role in developing effective leaders and providing support to the mechanisms that drive sustainable growth within communities and throughout the world. How do we differentiate? In order to differentiate ourselves in the dynamic environment, business schools today, in my opinion, need to innovate the concept of innovation, that it itself becomes a differentiation in the mission of its existence. They should aim to explore new frontiers, promote higher integration between themselves and the community, the global environment. Every business school should be aimed to be a catalyst in innovation. They need to integrate themselves tightly both into the academic and practice communities. And really what we're echoing is the relationship between academic, research, and industry collaborations. So many people contend that innovation success is solely built on science and technology. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, who we all know, said innovation has nothing to do with how much R&D you have put into. While they were innovating the Mac, IBM was spending 100 times more on research and development. It's not about the money. It's about the people you have, how you're led, and how much you get out of it. Innovation is much more than a business performance. It is about economic and social prosperity. It is as much about leadership and management as it is about science and technology. Innovation is a bridge between the historical strengths of business schools and management, education, research, and the broader social community. There is an enormous range of opportunities for schools to create value by fostering innovations within not only the communities they serve, whether it's industry or the community at large as a whole. At the University of Melbourne, we introduced what we call as Carlton Connect. We're based in a center for innovation, academic playing field, and reach out to the community in the city of Melbourne as well. I think that success is really something that echoes. There's a school in Mumbai, which I'm in quite close contact with, called the Indian School of Management and Entrepreneurship, that's working on what we call as the Lower Parel Innovation District. It brings about teaching management education with academic experience in really creating a playground of innovation and entrepreneurship. Business schools, in continuation, have capacity to be a more stable foundation of the world, its wealth, health, and happiness. The formation of an innovation mission within a school will then be able to create the transformation that we would like to achieve. Entrepreneurship and innovation are deeply and extrinsically connected. In today's environment, organizations exploit new inventions and ideas are the most important. These organizations help create jobs and provide competitive pressure for companies to adopt better management practices. New and innovative organizations can be born out of garages or boardrooms. Nowadays, they are increasingly born out of universities. Worldwide universities have assumed a more active role in commercializing inventions and creating ideas through collaboration, again, between industry and academic linkages. There's been a tendency to think that innovation is only about scientific or technological advances, as I said earlier. Government and non-governmental policies report innovation addresses the inclusion of funding for STEM, whereas the focus has to focus on international competitiveness. Innovation requires a variety of factors working together. We echoed earlier in the earlier speeches about the social sciences, not only just the innovation on research and on the STEM areas. Business schools need to differentiate themselves in how you deliver knowledge. Be innovative delivery of management, knowledge, academic content, real-life employability, skills, and the right learning processes are really a few lists that come to my mind of being both in an environment which is in advanced economy as well as in a growing economy as well. Currently, MOOCs, the massive open online courses, private universities, publishers, corporate universities are seen as disruptors of traditional business models. However, the real disruptor and the point of differentiation should be the student experience and the delivery of such research-led organizations. Business schools are not only need to continue to arm their students with right employability skills, but with right employability learning perspectives to support lifelong learning. One step towards this would be to develop and deliver programs that incorporate academic and skill-based competencies as a challenge in a differentiation itself. We've all been exposed to education systems that have been echoed and mastered for years and years, but what one is seeing more importantly is the practicality. What do you bring into the classroom, from the classroom to the real world environment? Bringing upon the lessons that you learn from hands-on. As I say, from drawing rooms to boardrooms to classrooms. The challenge in differentiation in how to articulate how we are willing to live up to this educational mission, a common thread, is providing a value proposition to both the students and the employers. I like to list out 3 areas: refresh and infuse. Be aware of your context, whether it's in an international context or an Indian context or in an area where you're trying to mix the two. Institutionalize your best capabilities. Make it the mantra, the mission of your existence. What business schools are doing is that they do not really distinguish from each other. There's competition where we see a lot of schools coming into the market, a lot of MBA degrees identified, as we've heard earlier. The market is less and less clear of what is the brand, but really the business school proliferation, which many of them have weak brands. There's a danger of taking the value of the brand. Now really what my focus is talking about, the value of the brand that the school brings to. It's really equating it to the same experience of what cell phone do you have or what car do you drive. At the core, it is the brand. The difference in reputation is often larger than the difference in the objective. That is the quality and the branding that is associated with that school. Today's business education market has approached a saturation point on competition. Offering a vanilla curriculum provides little incentives for students or businesses to value the product produced by the school. Every program is fighting to get students and business attention. School must now learn, and the time has arrived to differentiate themselves. In summary, there are 5 factors that I would suggest as key points that schools need to look at as a differentiator. We talked about people, skill acquisition, whether it's through business leaders, academics, or students themselves. Corporate industry partnerships, or what we call in Australia more as RIC, research industry collaborations. Study abroad, experiences to move interstate, to go within the country and explore the different cultures that exist, the cultural adaptation and readiness to go into the workplace. And a focus that some do better than the others, is along alumni relations, because they are your ambassadors for a lifetime. And I think last but not the least, with a lot of new schools and universities focusing on is about getting the new student. What about the current student? What about the student experience that they go through? In conclusion, I would say every business school must ask the question, do we want quantity or quality? Quality graduates will produce the quantity of new recruits that needed for a strong fulfillment of an academic world. With that really brings me to the end of this presentation, and thank you once again, CII, and everyone for giving me a patient hearing this morning. Thank you.
Before we conclude this inaugural session, let me thank the speakers, the eminent speakers on stage, for giving their very valuable thoughts, and I'm sure there will be a lot of points that we can action on this morning. We have a very special announcement. This year, it was actually a part of the previous year's Education Subcommittee's initiative headed by Mr. Venkata Subramaniam. We would like to launch a comprehensive education portal from CII, and this would be made into a vibrant online platform to facilitate student Faculty Connect. And key focuses of our portal is to act as a facilitator to manage the expectations of academy versus industry. Our web portal will also have other embellishments like updates on CII and other work areas of the Education Subcommittee of the Southern Region. Now I'd like to request Mr. C.R. Swaminathan, past Chairman, CII Southern Region, to launch this portal. I would also request Mr. Venkat Subramaniam to be on stage for the same. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Swaminathan.